One of possibly the most important decisions someone makes in their life is choosing a romantic partner. Unfortunately, it hasn't always been up to one person to decide their fate when it comes to a romantic partner. Um, Back then, is what I'm referring to as historically, family ties played a really big role. Parents would decide who their child marries. It would be a really political thing, and often didn't end how children wanted it to. Another role after the phase of arranged marriages was demographics. People married out of convenience because someone lived close by. Now, obviously, parents don't really have that much of a say in who their child marries or chooses as a romantic partner. On top of that, technology is allowing for so much change in the dating world. Not only can people communicate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but they have the opportunity to communicate with people all over the world at any given time on any day, which is a huge tool that's causing a lot of non-traditional relationships. These relationships can be among different genders, different races, or what we're going to be looking at is different ages. Age gap relationships are still not really popular, but they're on the rise and becoming much more socially acceptable. So, one really big aspect of any relationship, regardless if it's traditional or non traditional, is conflict. It's inevitable among everyone. So, today, what we're going to look at is if there's a difference between how conflict is handled between these traditional relationship partners and these non traditional age gap relationship partners. But first, let's dive into the conflict management styles. There's 5 conflict management styles: accommodation, avoiding, collaborating, competing, and compromising. In accommodating, generally one partner will accommodate or give in and work with the other partner. Avoiding is exactly how it sounds: avoiding the topic at hand, avoiding the conflict, not bringing it up. In collaborating, the two partners work together to find a resolution to the conflict. Competing is very self-motivated. One person wants to win, or both people could use the competing conflict management style. They both compete for their side to win. And the last is compromising. Many people in compromising situations don't get 100% of what they want, but both parties compromise to get a little bit of what each party wants as an end result, which is very popular. And accommodating, collaborating, and compromising are probably the 3 that lead to more healthy conflict scenarios. So age gaps have been studied and researched. One study was done by Davis in 1998, who wanted to know if these age gap relationships happened for reasons beyond attraction and chemistry. While in 1998 these relationships weren't nearly as popular as they are now, he wanted to know if it was because of reproductive strategies. For example, some reproductive strategies might be men seeking younger women because they're more fertile and of childbearing age, or women seeking older men because they're more financially stable and can provide for a family, or just social preferences, which is pretty self-explanatory. Just people prefer people of a younger or older age. They looked at personal ads in 2 major cities. These ads described not only the person seeking a mate, but also the type of mate they were seeking, and that included an age range. What they found was while men did seek younger women, men, for example, of the age of 50 weren't seeking women in their 20s who are of childbearing age. They were seeking women slightly younger than them, so for example, maybe in their 40s. And women of all ages seeked men slightly older than them. This suggests that it's more for social preferences that these relationships might occur rather than reproductive preference or strategies, I should say. So now let's look at some conflict management studies. One done in 2012 by Keener, Straught, and DiDonato. It looked at conflict between platonic friends and romantic partners. Participants were interviewed and given hypothetical scenarios and then asked to describe how they would react to these scenarios with friends and with their romantic partners. What they determined was that women act the same in every situation. And what I mean by that is that women lean towards the needs of others in any given conflict. Men, interestingly enough, though, focus more on the needs of self in friendship conflict, but the needs of others in romantic relationships. Another study that looked at conflict and age was done by Wiebe, Yanbing, and Ning in 2018. So this was a very recent study. And they looked at feudal obligation, which is essentially just a really fancy way of saying how younger people should treat older people. They wanted to see how feudal obligation plays a role in conflict. They did this by interviewing younger people and using a coding scheme to determine what conflict management styles were being used from their descriptions. What they found was that avoiding and collaborating were used mostly, or suggested that they would use mostly, when in conflict with people older than them. My study, which was just conducted in 2018, looked at conflict management styles between people in traditional relationships and age gap relationships. So that's what is meant by different types of relationships. The goal of the study was to determine if there was a difference between these two types of conflict within these relationships that are so similar but also so different. How was it done? It was done by an online survey, and it was on a volunteer basis. So essentially what I did was I created the survey and then spit it out on social media platforms, which is essentially now the easiest way to reach a lot of people in a short amount of time. So then my friends and mutual friends, they shared it, and I got responses that way. The questions at hand in the survey asked participants about their romantic relationships. So it asked questions like, how long have you been in a relationship? Because that can determine how much conflict is really being done. Another important question was the age gap between the participant and their romantic partner. So what I determined a large age gap, so a non-traditional relationship was 6 or more years. Generally, society seems like it would be less accepting of an age gap of that range. Another really important question on the survey was an open-ended question about a conflict. It just gave a hypothetical situation that could lead to a lot of conflicts in today's day and age. Participants were just asked to honestly answer this question and how they would react to this scenario. I used a coding scheme then to determine what conflict management style that they used depending on their response. So results were pretty interesting. It determined that traditional relationships lean towards compromising and competing. So compromising 34%, a large portion, and 30% for competing. In age gap relationships, compromising and collaborating were the two most popular at 28% and 28%. So this tells me that most people lean towards the needs of others. They compromise in relationships. However, traditional relationships, a large portion of people lean towards the needs of self in competing. Compromise and collaborating are both more towards the needs of others, which was really interesting to me that possibly people in traditional relationships don't focus on the other person as much as people in age gap relationships. Why are these results important? Why is this important to study? Like I mentioned earlier, age gap relationships are relatively new in today's society. Technology is advancing and it's allowing for these types of relationships to really flourish. However, conflict is still relevant in any relationship. And conflict has been studied in traditional relationships for as long as conflict's been around. However, it hasn't really been looked at in this type of relationship. Me personally, I'm in an age gap relationship, and conflict can be hard. So it's really reassuring to know how to possibly address conflict in situations on a deeper level than just what I'm gathering from my partner. And I hope that this study also benefits others in age gap relationships if they're dealing with some conflict issues or conflict management issues in their relationships as well.